Or Steve, can we get the music? Thank you. We are live. The first couple of minutes of the show, we always make sure that the sound is working, our music is turned off. Just give us a couple seconds and we'll start up. Don't go anywhere. We'll let everybody kind of join up. And if you are watching right now and you don't hear audio, Brian, I just made Brian cough up his coffee. Are you okay? Need a napkin? Okay. Let me know and we'll fix that for you. Well, let's get a little bit of light on the situation. All right, cool. I'll be back in just a few minutes, everybody. Hang tight. Be right back. You okay? Yes. 2 minutes. Just so much stuff to talk about today.
Sorry, you can find that.
What's up?
It's just that I was at the last tested meeting for the festival on that place. They said, "Oh, we want you to shoot 30 minutes open." Okay.
30-minute opening. That's about what? 17 hours of recording? All right. We have just about 5 o'clock. A couple of people are signing in already to watch. Sound and video are good. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Hello, Mims. All right, cool. So let's get going. Today is, well, it's almost Canada Day. And because Canada Day comes along once a year, everybody goes out and photographs fireworks. Do you do fireworks? No? Oh, no?
No.
Oh, well, that's what we're talking about today. Photographing fireworks. And it's a lot of fun, and I've got a couple tips and techniques to pass on to everybody. But of course, like always, we have an agenda on our show here. And so let me open up my notes here and I'll be able to get to it. All right, first off, the agenda would be our outline. We have our Did You Know? Quick tip. We have what's new and used. We have our core conversation, because my wife hates it when I say the meat and potatoes of the show. So I guess I just said it. I'll be hearing about that. Anyway, the core conversation is going to be about firework photography. There are so many cool things you can do with a camera when it comes to drawing with light photography. I say it all the time, and I'm kind of known for it. But when you actually start to think about what photography means and how it literally translates to drawing with light, there's a lot of things you can do with fireworks photography. So we're going to get into that. But first, the Did You Know? And the Did You Know is a quick digital know-how. It's a tip, quick, hey, did you know? You know, that kind of thing. Today's Did You Know is a simple one. Did you know that Henry's has been Canadian-owned since 1909? A lot of people don't know that. And even to this day, even though we've just gone through a transition to Lynx Equity, now owns Henry's, it's still a Canadian-owned company. So the fact that Henry's has been around serving our customers, creating, creators themselves over the past 100 plus years, 115, 16 years, something like that. It's pretty impressive. So for those who didn't know, check out the history of Henry's on our website. There's a little bit of information there about who we are and what we're about. I just think it's awesome working for a company. Oops, my hat fell off. I'll explain that in a minute. I just think it's awesome working for a company that has had Canadian ownership since 1909, which is ridiculous. I don't math, so I'll let you people work out the math. All right, what's new and used? So what's new would be what's new in the industry, what's new as far as new cameras or new toys that are coming out, or even just personally what's new for me, because this is my show, right? It's the BrYangle show, so why not? So first off, what's new for me? I'm super stoked. Z6 III, baby. I know it's probably not focusing, but I just got my new camera. First camera I've actually purchased in the past 10 plus years since I bought the Schwartz, my D7100 years ago, and I still have that camera. I love that camera. But I've needed something for quite a while, and Nikon has put out some incredible cameras with the Z8 and the Z9, and I've been using those for a long time now. But when they announced the Z6 III, I jumped on it immediately, like I did when I bought the 7100, the Schwartz. Only one problem. Now I need a new name. I need to name my new camera. So if anybody has any ideas of what I should name my new Nikon Z6 III, let me know. That'll be a lot of fun to hear what people have to say. I always pick something that means something personal to me, like the Schwartz. In German, it means black. Of course, Nikon are black. And plus the movie Spaceballs. Enough said. And my first camera was Mr. Snaps, my D7100, because my cat's name was Snapperhead. Although everybody thinks it has to do with photography, but it didn't. Anywho, what else is new? Nikon, speaking of Nikon, we're doing a cool photo walk this Sunday. So Aurora and the team are going to be leading this photo walk with somebody from Nikon.
Daniel from Nikon.
Daniel from Nikon is coming. He's our rep, awesome guy, with a lot of lenses and equipment for people to play with. It's based on macro photography. That's really what the whole goal is. So there will be macro lenses for the F mount and for the Z mount, and lots of people helping you if you have any questions. And if you want to register for that, all you have to do is email us at newmarket@henrys.com. Let Aurora know that you want to come, and she'll put you on the list and include you in all the follow-up emails. So again, that is this Sunday, the 30th. I won't be there because I'll be on vacation. Yeah, it's my birthday on Friday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Brian. So because of my birthday and I just have to do stuff around the house, I'm taking time off and I'll be doing the honey-do list like crazy. Something else that's new, Sigma just announced, they were here yesterday, told us two really cool things. Really cool things. The first is their new first ever zoom f1.8 aperture full frame lens. They will have an RF, I believe. Currently, they have an E mount and they have an L mount, I've seen. I'm pretty sure, and they might even be coming with a Z mount soon. So I don't know for a fact on those two things, but I definitely know the Sony mount and the L mount are already out there. They're only about $1,900 for a 1.8 aperture, 28 to 45. Awesome lens. And keep in mind, Sigma has that 7-year guarantee. So the service is fantastic. They're out of Markham. Gentech International is the distribution company. And I just love the Sigma value. So check this out, full frame 2485 f1.8 aperture zoom, first ever full frame 1.8 zoom. And speaking of Gentech, they just acquired Savage papers. So all those backdrop papers that we use, that we've had a hard time getting different colors and different things in for because we've had to buy them from the States all this time. Gentech in Markham is now the distribution company, which means we're going to have everything you need as far as backdrop papers and anything that Savage makes. I'm super excited about that. And that's about it. So yeah, that's our what's new part of the conversation. Moving on to the what's used. Now this is a bit of a twofer. What I've got for you today is something that is a used item that we're selling, but something that is also extremely important and used for fireworks photography. And that is a good tripod. So this particular tripod is the Manfrotto Pro tripod, but it's a used one that we have, and it's got, you know, all the strength and the support that you need for super telephotos or whatever you need to have. With the bag included, this used tripod is only $400. Usually these Manfrottos are about, with the bag is about $150 on its own, and the stands are what, $500-600 or so. So superb value. And this is the video head tripod with the air cushion or the hydraulic fluid cushioned system. So very smooth. I'm using it for something I would normally use a ball head for, but since this is talking about our used, I put this tripod over here to talk about. And you're going to see me talk about this quite a bit in our core conversation because even though, you know, graduation is just around the corner, you got the grad hat here, there's a lot more to a graduation cap on a camera than grad time. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. In fact, let's get to the core conversation. I keep on looking over to Aurora like she's going to be like, yeah, go ahead, get to the core conversation. I don't know why. That's what I do. It's your turn. Go do it. Anyway, so core conversation, how to make better fireworks photos. Before I get to that, let me just have a quick look over to see if anybody's been chatting. Ooh, dark helmet. I saw that. That was funny. Drew Karsh, hello, sir. Steve's watching. Cool. And don't forget, people, if you're watching this live and you have a question that I don't see right away, Steve's currently busy, but Aurora's keeping an eye on there too, so she'll draw my attention to your questions as well. Hello, Felix, and everybody. He says hi to everybody. Shelly's watching. Where did Steve see Shelly's watching? He said, hi, Shelly. That's pretty cool. Mark Drukar, fancy schmancy. Yes, I know. I got my new camera. Oh, there's Shelly. And Drukar says, Dark Helmet. You know, there's nothing like watching the movie Spaceballs. And if you haven't seen it, Mel Brooks classic, check it out. Star Wars spoof, one of the best movies ever. Oh, Ann's watching. And Debbie's watching. Loves her Sigma lens. Good. Awesome. Thank you all for watching. But don't forget, this is live for a reason. We want you guys to ask questions. So during the core conversation, if you have a question about what I'm talking about, please chime in. Aurora will draw my attention to it, and we'll get to it right away. All right. Let's move on. Any questions? Nope. Good. So how do we make fireworks photos? If anybody's been out there trying to do this, in your frustration, you might have noticed that you have grainy pictures. You might have noticed that the fireworks are too bright. You might have noticed that they blur and they swirl a little bit. The problem with taking pictures at night is your shutter needs to be open for a longer time. And when you open your shutter for a longer time, things start to blur. So that's why we use a tripod. There goes the hat. Let's get it back here. The hat is essential to this conversation. So I need it. There we go. And if the mic isn't hearing me, I got to move this so that everybody can hear me better. There we go. So first thing, having a tripod is super important because your camera cannot move. Once you've got it set up, it's going to be static. You don't want it moving forward or backward, or else you have to refocus every time. So let me flip over here. I've got some fireworks photos that have been playing behind me. You've probably been seeing some of these as I've been talking. I'll get to those more in just a minute. But first, to get into the setup conversation, let me return. Let me choose the input. HDMI. All right. Now, Brian, finally, you can see what I'm talking about, being here as our guest. And turn the camera on. Here we go. So this is the display. This is all the settings that are involved in a camera. Now, if I'm just on an automatic mode, which this is right now, and you can see right here, it says auto, I'm just going to get whatever exposure the camera wants to give me. It's going to focus automatically. It's going to do everything for you, and that's not the way it's supposed to be doing this. So what I'm going to suggest is everybody move their camera into manual exposure, where you're choosing your shutter speed, your aperture, your ISO. You're in control of everything, including your focusing, of course. Then we're going to choose our shutter speeds. Now, keep in mind, if we're going to be doing a long exposure, the longer the shutter stays open, the more fireworks and the more blur you're going to see. So now you have to decide, do you want short little bursts of fireworks where you're going maybe 2 or 3 seconds? Or do you want to keep the shutter open for a longer period of time where you have the firework and the firework and the firework going off in one frame? And I have lots of photos to show you what that means, but I'll get to that in a minute. So first, we need our tripod. Second, a remote control. I don't recommend using your phone as a remote. A, your phone battery will die, and B, your camera battery will die from the Wi-Fi being turned on. Always recommend a corded, wired remote control. No battery required. It fires every time you squeeze the shutter. See, it's taking pictures as we speak. Just click the button. It'll take a picture if you have it set up right. So having that wired remote control, I think, is the most important part of being successful with your fireworks photos. And if you can, bring a hat, a baseball hat, or we didn't have one, so we had this little graduation cap that I'm going to show you how to use this to get the hat trick photos, which are my personal favorite. Okay, so what kind of pictures do we expect to be taking for fireworks photos? For that, I'm going to do a screen share here. I'm going to show you some photos that I've made over the years. Here we go. Let's just swipe over and show you. This is one of those photos I was talking about, the hat trick. It's a long exposure, and I had a hat in front of the lens, and during the firework exposure, as the firework went off, I've got a remote stuck to me, don't mind me. As the firework went off, I would remove the hat for 2 seconds and put it back, and then the next firework would go off and you'd see it. Here's another example of multiple fireworks going off in one photo, and I can show you the settings here. This is a 6.4 second exposure. The first one was 10 seconds. So during that 10 seconds, the hat was in front of the lens, one firework went off, I moved the hat for 2 seconds. Put the hat back. The next firework went off, I moved the hat for 2 more seconds. Put the hat back. And that creates 2 separate exposures in one photo. And that's how I was able to get the real good clarity of the little firework in the background and also the drooping fireworks going in the foreground. This is only about a 2-second exposure for each firework. So the firework would go off, the hat would move for 2 seconds, and I would create an individual 2-second exposure during a longer 10-second exposure. Brian, does that make sense? Cool, thank you. I'm asking you because if I'm not saying it clearly, then it'll probably also need to be reiterated for everybody else. Cool. And if anybody has questions on this process while I'm talking, let me know. As you can see, each firework photo I have is a different shutter speed. This one here is 16 seconds. So the way I do that is I put my camera into bulb exposure, B-U-L-B. On most cameras, that's 1 second slower than 30 seconds if you're in manual exposure. On a Canon, it has a B mode, B for bulb on the dial on the top. I keep on using hand gestures like people can see me right now. Nobody can see me. I'm just talking. But this, because it's a 16-second exposure, all these different fireworks went off. There's like 6 or 7 different firework explosions in this one picture. But because I keep my hat over the lens, it's never getting too bright in any one individual place. So the firework goes off, I put the hat back 2 seconds later. 7 fireworks, about 2 seconds per firework, gives us that total duration of time for a longer exposure. And this one was kind of just a fun shot where the firework landed in the water and then blew up inside the water. So I got the reflection of the water and the firework. It was a fun shot. It's only a 3.5-second exposure. Now this is where I've done photos during my actual photography workshop on fireworks photography. I held a workshop in a huge field. We had about $1,500 worth of fireworks. Yeah, it was awesome. Blew things up all night long until about 1:30 in the morning. Sorry, we have a question. Yes, Brian.
I just have a comment. When I shoot like this, because you have exposed the fireworks over here, when you open it up again, the fireworks are here. It doesn't bother this because those pixels have been used.
Exactly. Yeah, when the firework goes off, it leaves that impression on the sensor. So when the firework disappears, there's no light hitting that sensor anymore.
Maybe
in that spot.
viewers are, why is it painted?
Why can we have multiple? Yeah, basically, yeah, exactly. As the firework goes off and it leaves the impression on the sensor, it remembers that that photo was there. Those pixels are used. That disappears, another firework goes off somewhere else, and that also shows. So now you have the one firework, then the second firework, each individually glued to the screen, so to speak, because your pixels are exposed for that duration of time. What I was going to show here is how you can take that same concept and zoom during the exposure. So then all of those, here, let me bring that up. Here we go. So this image, actually, you gotta turn it back on so everybody can see this. Here we go. And I will get rid of the details so you can see the photo larger. Now we have the two vertical fireworks in the shot are in there. It's the same position. During the shot, I zoomed my lens, so it made it look from farther away to closer. You can see the lines connecting the two vertical lines. That's the lights blurring as I zoomed in. And then that last firework above went off during that last exposure. So again, it's just like Brian is saying, when you make an image like this, any light that hits your sensor in that spot will be there. And if you move the camera and a firework goes off, even though the firework went off in the same spot, you've moved the camera, it's going to appear somewhere different on the photo. So this is another way you can make a fireworks photo with fireworks all over the screen. Just by letting the firework go off, move the camera a little bit, letting the next firework go off, move the camera a little bit, putting that fireworks light where you hadn't had light before.
But it's important that they
Right. Good point from Aurora. It's important that you use the hat in between those exposures, because otherwise you just have overexposure and overexposure and overexposure, and more ambient light is just going to keep on hitting the sensor. So in between each firework, put the hat back. That'll block all the ambient light from creating new light aberrations in your photo and give you a blacker black, and the fireworks would be more defined, and also not spread out the whole sky. They'd just be like, here, let me get rid of this here for a second so people can see my amazing hand gestures that make all the difference in the world. When the firework goes off, if you count, boom, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6. The firework tendrils, so to speak, will keep on going in the sky. But if you only do 2-second exposures at a time, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then you just have jazz hands. Had to do the jazz hands. But that's the idea, right? You only get that short little burst if your exposures are shorter by using the hat in front of your lens.
Michael says, brilliant idea about your remote. Never thought about that. And Felix says, so similar to light painting. That's very cool.
It literally is light painting. Yeah, it is exactly light painting. In fact, if you start to add in your own light to that, maybe you do the firework in the background and somebody in the foreground with a light tube or some flashlights having fun with it, you can do all kinds of additional exposures in that one shot, and that can be even more fun. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you put that parallel together, Felix, because it's absolutely true. Okay, cool. Let's see what else we have to talk about. Okay, so what do we do here? How do we actually make a photo in the dark? That's where it gets really difficult. Brian's shaking his head. Yes, it's almost impossible. So the problem is you have to pre-focus. So first off, I'm in manual exposure. There's 2 ways to make longer exposures. Well, more than 2 maybe, but I'm going to talk about 2. The first is just dial your shutter speed. Oh, wrong dial. By the way, in most cameras, when it shows inches, that means seconds. So right now that's a 15-second exposure, and you can see this changing right here on the screen behind me. If I go 1 step longer than 30 seconds, it says bulb, B-U-L-B. So bulb means as long as I hold this button on the remote control, press, and I can lock it. And now it's exposing. The whole time right now it's taking a picture. If I release that, it'll end the exposure and show us the photo, which there's no memory card in the camera, so it probably won't. Oh, it's up here. Shows us that white photo because the shutter was open for far too long. Now, if I take the hat and I put the hat over top of it, press the shutter, it's taking a picture. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, put the hat back. I'm still exposing for a long time, but when I look at that photo, it's going to be white too, because I still let in lots of light. But in theory, if this were dark outside, it wouldn't, right? My ISO is at 500, so that's a little high. I can lower the ISO to 100. That'll let less light in. Of course, it's focused on nothing, so let's get a focus here. All right. Now, let's see if that'll get this to work. Block it from any light getting in. Taking a picture. 1 Mississippi. Oh, it's not even focusing. I can feel it hunting. Yes, it's not even going to focus on anything. I didn't take a picture, but if I hit play, see how it's very dark now, right? So this has been letting a lot less light in, although it's obviously still seeping in through the sides. I recommend a high quality hat, not a graduation cap, by the way, just so you know. Better hats are better, for sure. But now if I were to remove this and I were to pre-focus, so I'm going to focus on something, let the lens do its job. I can't do that when it's on HDMI, of course. There we go. And then lock your focus to manual when it's done focusing. Of course, it didn't work. I don't know why. It's an icon, that's why. It's my story, I'm sticking to it. All right, so let's do this one more time. Take the picture, it's on bulb, release 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, put it back, and then when I release, it's gonna be a little bit brighter this time for sure. Very bright, and you can see there is some detail and it does take a picture. So imagine nighttime without a light shining directly into the camera probably is not helping right now that I'm looking at this light shining straight into the camera lens. That's never mind. I'm not gonna. There you go, Brian. That's for you. All right, so that's the idea. Yeah. First thing you do is you set your ISO low, 100 ISO. That's going to give you better color accuracy, better clarity, and no grain to your photo. Choose your shutter speed. If you want to do a 2 or 3 second exposure, by all means, dial it into 2 or 3 seconds. Get your focus first. And the trick for getting focus when you're shooting at night is focus on the horizon. Focus on a street lamp somewhere off in the distance. Or if there's none of that, but you see stars, dial your focus on manual focus until the star gets as small as possible. It'll glow when it's out of focus, and it'll get to a fine point when it's in focus. So flip your focus to manual, look through your viewfinder, and just dial your focus until you see that star's point get as small as it can possibly get, and chances are you'll have good focus. Last but not least, a lot of lenses will have that infinity marker somewhere on their lens. If you put your focus to manual and you dial the focus to that little infinity symbol, generally that's going to give you focus from 10 feet and beyond, and that's perfect for taking night photos. So focus first. When you've done capturing your focus and everything looks like it's sharp, keep your focus locked to manual so it will not change. What I was doing here, it was still changing under the hat. I can feel the motor in the lens trying to find focus on something. You don't want that happening when you're taking pictures at night. So as soon as you got your focus where you like, flip it to manual and leave it there. If your camera doesn't move in or out, and if you don't start zooming or changing your focus on your lens, you shouldn't have to change that again for the rest of the night. But if you do want to start having some fun, learn how to get this focus, try it again, get your focus one more time, and then start shooting more. Keep in mind, every couple of photos, maybe review your shots, make sure that the focus hasn't moved so that you don't go home at the end of the night with a bunch of blurry photos because your focus was just a little bit off. So tweak every once in a while. Chimp your photos. You guys know what chimping is? You don't know what chimping is, Brian? I'm a city guy. Chimping is when you're taking a picture and you love it so much you go, ooh, ooh, look, ooh, 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 look. It's chimping. Yeah. Review your photo. Zoom in at about 100%. Check for sharpness on all the little fireworks. If you've got it, you're golden for the rest of the night. If not, tweak your focus a little bit and try again. Now, this is where you can have a lot of fun. Zoom blur and focus blooming are two unique features. Yes, before I get to that.
Anne says aperture, f8 or so?
Yeah, that's a good question. Anne asked about the aperture, f8 or so. That's exactly where I'd start. In fact, for fireworks photography, I'd usually start f8, 30 seconds. See how that goes at 100 ISO. With a dark sky, your sky should be black. If you want to see more blue sky, raise your ISO to 400 or even 800, and you'll see that black sky start to turn blue. So that's a neat little added benefit for you there. But yeah, starting around f8, that gives you nice depth. It helps your focus work a little bit more for you. If you're shooting with a wide lens, like I have here, the 17 to 28, I have to remember what this is because I just got it. It's a really, really wide lens, and I can be shooting at f2.8 and still have good depth. But shooting at f8 or f11 always will ensure a little bit better depth of field, a little more depth, so your focus is going to hit a little bit easier. Brian's wondering what I just said.
No.
No? You're good? Okay, perfect. Okay. Now, zoom blur and focus blooming. Two different things. Zoom blur is what I was showing you a few minutes ago, where we had the, I'll flip back over and show you. During the long exposure, I zoomed the lens. So it brought something far close, creating that stream of light in between those two vertical fireworks. So during the shot, I would zoom the lens. That could be a lot of fun in its own. But focus blooming is something totally different. This is where you're going to start with your photo out of focus. During the long exposure, you're going to turn just your focus to bring it back into focus. So it'll look like flowers in the sky. See if I can show you what focus blooming looks like. I'd love to show you my own results, but I have really crappy versions of those photos. Fireworks focus blooming. Here we go. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here again and show y'all. This is a focus blooming photo. It looks very ethereal. It's a completely different thing. Almost looks like you can create dragons in the sky. So this is going from a blurry image to a sharp image during the exposure. You could do the opposite, where you're going from a sharp image to a blurry image. So it'll look more like the one there on the far right, the white, where it's kind of sharp, but then it goes to blur. So this is controlling your results to a higher level. And I only really recommend it when you're comfortable with the whole process in the first place. But you know what? Photography is great. Have fun with it. Make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with it. Anything you do can be fun. Some of the worst photos you've ever made could be the ones that people love the most. You never know. All right, let's bring it back here. And let's see what's next on the agenda. Well, that's about it. And we're at 5:28. Fantastic. Any questions on what we've been talking about so far? F8, nothing new since that. Okay, cool. So let's get to the closing part of our conversation. As a reminder, the photo walk coming up, Nikon Macro Photo Walk, that's going to be on June 30th. That's this Sunday at 5:30 after we're done here at the store. Not me, Aurora. I'm going to be on vacation, so. Yeah. Oh, and if anybody, sorry?
You don't have to be an Nikon shooter to come on to the
Oh, very good point.
We're going to other macro lenses and macro lenses for different brands.
Perfect.
But the Nikon rep is coming for it.
So Aurora is just mentioning, because you probably can't hear it too well through the mic, it's not just for Nikon people. It just so happens Nikon is kind of sponsoring it, and the Nikon rep will be there. But if you have a Canon or a Sony, it doesn't matter. We're still going to talk about macro, and they're still going to help you out if you have any questions. And it's not a huge group at this point, so you get a lot of good support if you have any questions. Definitely worth going, especially with the talent that's going to be there. I mean, Steve, you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Aurora's going to be there. Is Daniel going to be there? Our Daniel? Our Daniel and Nikon Daniel. So that's a big group of people. It's almost like 2-to-1 at this point, helper to person, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, less Brian's, more Daniels for this trip. Yes, I'll be on vacation, so that the photo challenge for June, which is Pride, for all of you who have been making your Pride photo for the challenge, it's not going to be reviewed until July 17th. That's the next time that we're going to meet after this week. So the next 2 weeks, there will be no show. For all of you who miss me and don't, get upset and just want to, vent and yell at somebody, by all means, call Aurora. Tell her how angry you are that I'm not doing it for the next 2 weeks. I'm sure she'll be ecstatic to hear you say that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I need to say before we say goodbye. Things that make you go, I think we're good. Brian,
What if you don't want to shoot stills and you want to shoot video?
on the photo walk? So Brian just brought up a really good point. What if you don't want to do photos of fireworks? So stay tuned. Same bad time, same bad channel next week. No, I'll talk about video. No, he wants to know about video. Video is a completely different bag. Video, you can do slow motion. You can do making sure your frame rates are right. But that's not something I'm really prepared for. Brian, you're making me feel dumb. Any firework tips for video? Polarized filters, anything like that? I'm going to do research. That's a good idea. I wish I had thought of that before the end of the show, because I could have done a little research on that one for you, Brian. Do you have a tip? Do you have an idea?
No,
Okay.
I do, but I'm not going to tell you.
Because I have to pay for that.
Oh, balls. I've done it with Reds.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay. Yeah, realistically, I mean, with any video tip that I would ever give is double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 60p, make sure your shutter speed is 120th of a second. The shutter speed isn't going to give you the same impact for video as it does for photo. So it's not a matter of choosing a slower or faster or whatever for fireworks. It's always double your frame rate with your shutter speed.
Shoot at 120, because then you can see the fireworks.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And that's
60 or higher, like 120.
perfect.
120, shoot at 60.
So let me fill them in on this. Absolutely. If you're shooting at more frames per second video, you're going to be able to capture all the subtleties of the firework moving through the sky instead of capturing every other glitchy second, or so to speak. So 120 frames per second. Some cameras will shoot 240 frames per second at full HD. So that could be a lot of fun too, where you really slow it down. You get that real cool, slow transition of the fireworks. But even 120 frames per second is spectacular for slowing it down. 60p is still okay. But yeah, I agree with you. I think I'd probably push that. Yeah. So you can slow it down and get really cool effects. Other than that, any other questions there, Aurora?
Michael says, great show tonight, and says, thank you, Brian. Fun show and full of tips. Love it.
Thank you so much, guys. And don't forget to tell people about this. Doesn't matter who you tell your garbage man. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. A lot of people want to know more about photography, and hey, this is free. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today. And if you have questions or tips for things that I'm going to talk about next time, like maybe Brian could have sent me an email and said, hey, Brian, why don't we get into video for fireworks? By all means, guys, tell me anything you want to learn. And if I don't know it, that's the beauty of research. I understand the concepts. I'll be able to research the topic. Take care, everybody. And we will see you all in a couple of weeks. I guess that's July 17th. I will see you all then. Take care, everybody.